break your own place. Yeah.
John, where do we take these two?
There is a place on that little wall, and there's like a
Basket or
inbox.
Okay.
Which one do I put this?
All right.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:32. Ms. Reese, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Clay.
Present.
Councilmember Carter. Councilmember McMillan.
Here.
Councilmember Hales. Councilmember Lucy.
Here.
Councilmember Smokerson.
Here.
Mayor Pro.
Here. You've already had the agenda before you. Any comments or questions or changes to the agenda? Mr. Hales.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. To everyone here, I'm very pleased to tell you this is the first council meeting that is actually being live streamed by the city. I'd like to thank the city manager, Gregory Rose, and Mike Carlin, who is our director of IT, for the work that he and other staff members did this week to get ready. We did a dry run this afternoon. I'm so pleased that we are doing this. It's been a long time coming, so thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we're very excited. We're not sure how we're going to look on TV, so someone please tell us later on how this all works. We are doing our best to try to make our meetings as acceptable to everyone and going to the living rooms as much as possible. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Not a change. I left one thing out, that it is being streamed on YouTube, and I think it's being shared on other social media.
Thank you. Hearing no changes to the agenda, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You have in front of you item number D, a proclamation for Pastor Middleton. I believe that all the members of council, am I correct, Ms. Reese, have signed the proclamation?
Yes, sir, Mayor.
And if I may, I would like to read the proclamation for honoring Pastor Joe Middleton. Whereas Elder Joe Middleton was installed as pastor of the City of Life Christian Church in October 2011. And whereas Pastor Joe Lewis Middleton has unselfishly demonstrated his personal and spiritual commitment to the Lord by virtue of 7 years of spiritual leadership and guidance to his congregation and the community of University City, Missouri, and the surrounding area as pastor of the City of Life Christian Church Incorporated. And whereas Pastor Joe Lewis Middleton has given generously of his time and effort, faithfully served his community in various capacities, and supported programs to benefit people of all ages and walks of life. And whereas with the love and encouragement of his wife, Lady Doris Lee Middleton, having faith worked diligently to provide prayers, friendship, leadership, comfort, and support to the City of Life family and the community. And whereas Pastor Joe Lewis Middleton has helped to improve and enrich the City of Life Christian Church family, while also building bridges to the community and teaching that the Church of God must be a church without walls that serves the community through faith-based initiatives and unwavering love. And whereas on August 26, 2018, the City of Life Christian Church will celebrate the 7th pastoral anniversary and the 70th birthday of Pastor Elder Joe L. Middleton. Now, therefore, the City Council of University City in the state of Missouri do join with the City of Life Christian Church in extending our sincere congratulations on the 7th anniversary and heartfelt 70th birthday to Pastor Elder Joe L. Middleton. Whereas we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of the City of University City to be affixed to this 13th day of August in the year 2018. Congratulations. Members of council, you have before you the June 18th study session minutes. Is there a motion that, everyone's had a chance to review them. Is there a motion that the minutes be approved? Motion by Ms. Carr, seconded by Mr. McMahon. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You have before you the June 25th regular session minutes. A motion that they be approved by Ms. Carr, seconded by Mr. McMahon. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? You have before you the July 9th regular session minutes. A motion that they be approved. Mr. Smotherson, second. Mr. Hales. Any questions, concerns? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? You have before you the July 14th special session minutes. A motion that they be approved. Mr. McMahon, second. Ms. Carr. Any questions, concerns, changes? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Kusick, I believe you have some reappointments.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Mary Gorman is being reappointed to the Green Practices for a full year term.
Thank you very much. The motion's been made by Mr. Kusick. Is there a second? Ms. Carr, any concerns, questions? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Mr. Kusick.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Sandy Jacobson and Robert Clark. I would like to reappoint them to the Historic Preservation Commission for a second term.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Ms. Carr, any council questions? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Mr. Kusick.
Thank you, Mayor. Rubina McAdamy would like to be reappointed to the Library Board for a second term.
Is there a second? Mr. Hales. Any questions? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Finally, Mr. Kusick.
Thank you, Mayor. Carl Reed, I would like to nominate him to the Senior Commission as a fill-in replacing Mary Hart's expired seat.
Second. Ms. Carr. Any questions? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Cheryl Langer was sworn into the Library Board of the City Clerk's Office on July 9th. We will now move to citizen participation. This portion of the program is limited to 15 minutes. When you come to the microphone, we would ask that you give your name and address and that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. The first person who is deciding to speak during this section of the agenda is Ms. Erin Ginsburg.
Hi, Mayor Crowe and Council. My name is Erin Ginsburg. I live at 430 West Fourth Court, and I'm going to request that I have 6 minutes instead of the regular 5. And instead of speaking to council, I would like to address one person that's here, and that would be my neighbor, Tom Sullivan. Tom, I appreciate the work that you have been doing as a government watchdog. Unfortunately, lately, you've either been barking up the wrong tree or crying wolf. You demanded the TIF continuation be canceled due to insufficient seating, yet I saw plenty of empty chairs at the Andron House on June the 6th. You repeatedly and publicly speculated about various emails between Councilwoman Carr and the Olive and 170 developer, yet the complaint you filed with the State Attorney General has only confirmed no such emails exist. Speaking about making false accusations loudly and in public, let me play devil's advocate for a change. I cannot find any record of you opposing Olivet's TIF that was approved in 2017 for the area southwest of Olive and 170. No record of you opposing the many other TIFs in our area. Tom, why are you solely opposed to University City's redevelopment? Who is paying you to campaign against it? Westfield Shopping Malls helped sabotage Novus's Sunset Hills redevelopment, and you haven't said one negative thing about them. You have not criticized any of the folks literally profiting off the economic losses in our third ward, like the absentee landlords. You have been parroting the Show Me Institute's anti-TIF talking points, so I'll ask, how much money is right-wing mega donor Rex Sinquefield paying you to kill U City's development? I was also planning on addressing Ryan Danielson, who is apparently not here. He was the second person I was hoping to address tonight, because when Jim Bastian and Irv Logan made allegations of campaign contribution conflicts of interest, Ryan published that story the very next day, even though their investigation uncovered absolutely no illegal activity. When Tom was the one making allegations against U City's TIF Commission, Ryan published his accusations the very same day. When former Mayor Shelley Welch expressed concern about the racial makeup of the TIF Commission in her weekly newsletter, Ryan's next article was an alarmist repeat of Shelley's spin. Tom, will you let your friend Ryan know that I was actually hopeful about him last January? He quickly responded to all my emails about reporting inaccuracies for Gateway's ambulances. We met for 2 hours in February. I gave him a binder full of EMS errors and omissions and connected him with neighbors still mourning the death of their loved one due to Gateway's medical negligence. The article that Ryan published in June about our outsourced EMS was fact-based and fair. But would you ask him, why the 5-month delay? How does Ryan decide which news is given priority? When Stephen Glickert complained about the paving on his street, Ryan gave him a next-day feature story. Tom, when you email about a new produce shipment at Long Acres Farmers Market, Ryan gave those watermelons immediate press coverage. But Ryan has not written a single thing about Coca's $28 million expansion approved last March. Ryan has written nothing about Coca's groundbreaking celebration in June. The one time your friend Ryan mentioned Coca in print was December 2017, when he copied Shelley Welch's holiday giving guide. If Ryan doesn't want to be dismissed as PR by proxy for our former mayor and his wife's relative, he needs to quit repeating Shelley's talking points. And Tom, if you don't want to be dismissed as a Rex Sinquefield stooge, stop quoting the Show Me Institute. And if you care about your credibility, stop making false allegations against our elected officials and quit attending meetings just long enough to complain. Our community deserves objective.
How much more time do you need?
10 seconds? Okay. Our community deserves objective journalists and trustworthy watchdogs. If you honestly want to help make your city better, it's time you started acting like it.
Next comment from Ms. Yvette Newsom.
Now for something completely different. I'll say that again. And now for something completely different. We got Joy Levison, 7570 Cornell Avenue. And I came to speak about the Lime bikes. Now we had a meeting prior to this. There was a study session regarding Lime bikes. And there's a, it's very hopeful and would be a good system. However, right now, Lime bikes, which is already present in Clayton and in St. Louis, there is a significant segment of the population that cannot use Lime bikes or any other of these. And we have a chance to fix that here in U City. Who am I referring to? I'm referring to people who are above the income threshold to qualify for Lime access, but who do not have iPhones or Android phones. So if you have a flip phone or a Windows phone, you and you do not qualify for the financial hardship, you cannot use Limebike. You cannot do a location map on a standard computer to see where they are either. Or if you happen to have a Windows phone, you would not be able to look them up either, or on one of the flip phones that do allow for some internet access. But this can be solved. This actually has a solution that Limebike could implement. Right now, in order to use Lime Access, you go online and you fill out a form and it gives your name, address, etc. And then it has the spot for, you have to give proof of financial exigency to give you the 95% discount. But what's interesting is how then you use Lime Access. It is a prepaid system. So they would go to a site that allows for this payment option, and one of them is actually like Dollar General, and they go and they buy their credits. They buy their credits at a steep discount, okay? There is no reason why these pay points could not also be used by people who are above the income threshold but who do not have iPhones or Android phones, pay full price for their credits and access the system afterwards the same way that Lime Access people do, which is through a text. They go, they make a text to the Limebike account system, they punch in the code for the bike, and it is released to them. There is no reason why that system cannot also be used for people without iPhones, or people without Androids, but are above the income threshold. I would seriously like the City Council to consider this condition as part of its MOU with Limebike. Like I said, it is right now limiting to a very significant portion of the population who cannot use it and who would probably like to. There are many seniors, no doubt, who are above the income threshold but don't have the phones that would allow them to access it. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Next citizen comment is from Deborah Henderson. Thank you very much.
Hello, Mayor Grove and, I'm sorry.
You probably need to put the microphone a little closer.
Oh, great, thanks. Can't read it. I trust you're all there. Deborah Henderson, 6124 Victoria Avenue. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Midtown Farmers Market and University City. Recently, I found out that the EDRST fiscal year funding has been put on hold for this year indeterminately. And we have received funding the last 3 years. This will be our 4th year that we've applied. I would like to ask the council respectfully to please consider releasing the funds for this year for the operation of the farmers market as soon as possible. The fiscal year for University City and the EDRST funding begins on July 1st. Which is when we are in the middle of the market season. And we rely on that funding each year to produce events and marketing for the market, children's activities, things like that. And many of the events we hold in the music are ways that we actually market. Without this funding, we'd have to immediately begin canceling most of our events and activities. The market has become what we hope you'll agree is an invaluable part of University City. This is our 5th year of operation. It's a community meeting place where all ages and cultures are comfortable and welcome. We create a sense of friendliness and inclusivity, safety that are compatible with the qualities of life in University City. We attract people from all over the metropolitan area, not just residents. We've done surveys that document this. We have programs that we operate that are independent of the EDRST funding, the health education, protection services,
which offers free fruits and vegetables to participants in the health program, SNAP, EBT, Double Up Food Bucks program. These are region-wide and national programs that make farmers market produce and foods available to low-income families. We also, as you know, work with high school students. We have 4 returning students this year that worked for us last year. They're just really a wonderful group of young men and women. In previous years' meetings with the staff at that time, they recommended that the market apply for marketing and events to meet that criteria that was set forth in the ERST mission. So that's why you always hear me talking more about those things, and our focus of our reports and applications have been more specifically on marketing and events. However, we have met other criteria as set forth in the mission. We have twice now kind of fixed up and renovated unoccupied buildings. We have made capital improvements on our own time and resources. We applied for grants to make improvements. We do beautification. If you walked in the plaza, that's not U City of Bloom, that's us. My husband and I are there probably about 10 hours a week during market season. We also meet, we bring in people for small business incubation, and it's hopeful in the future as other opportunities improve in University City that some of these people may be able to expand their businesses. And we also meet the criteria of Missouri agricultural products that has been set forth. Before closing, I'd like to say what I hope will be construed as a positive feedback for the city as you consider the mission of the ERST funding and how it fits with the mission of the council and what you hope for the city in the future. This is the 3rd year as an applicant that the city has issued requests for applications with very specific and clearly outlined missions, requirements and timeline, only to change it afterwards. We put in on ours alone about 30 to 40 hours on our application, and to have it changed makes it difficult to plan a budget. So I understand the reason going forward that purpose is a good thing. In closing, I'd like to thank you for your time and invite you all to come to the market. How I describe it and photos that I show don't do it justice. It's a magical and wonderful place, and I hope you think it's worthy of funding this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes this portion of the public comment. There are no public hearings. We now move forward to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Ms. Carr, is there a second? Second by Mr. Cusick. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Let's now move forward to the city manager's report. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I would like to take this opportunity before we get to the first item to do a couple of introductions. My first introduction is an individual that many of you are very familiar with. That, as you recall, I recently brought on board a new human resources director that is from Bel Air, Texas. And that person's name is Yolanda Housing. She was with the city of Bel Air for more than 6 years as their HR director. But Ms. Housing has a very extensive career that includes employment with the city of University City for more than 16 years, and a portion of that time period was as a human resources director here. So I would certainly welcome her back to the community, and I don't know if she has she's back. But yeah, she will be, without recognition, a great addition for us. A second individual that I would like to introduce, and I will defer to our acting community development director, Rosalind Williams, to introduce her new employee process. You'll have to come up to it now.
There we go. Okay. I'd like to introduce Colleen Dufay. She is our new zoning administrator / planner, and she started about a couple of weeks ago. She went to the University of North Carolina and worked in some policy institutes in housing. And she's a very good worker.
The first item under the city manager's report is on Honorary Street name designation, 8200 block Paramount. And I will have our public works director, Stina Appleson, present this item. I did want to share with you that this has been considered by the Traffic Commission several times, as well as being discussed by our development group. The concern that staff has with this is primarily from a public safety perspective, that the creation of an honorary street might create some confusion for our first responders. But I will ask Mr. Appleton to share with you the information from the Traffic Commission.
Good evening. The honorary street name designation and the related request was a challenging one for the Traffic Commission in general and staff as well. We had a previous process that we needed to refine on it, and that caused some additional processes for the applicant. And as Mr. Rose stated, the challenge becomes how we identify a street as one name. That is, as you know, the street name signs are green background and white letters on them, and those are highway standards. And so they apply when we direct any responders to the calls and the necessary response occur for emergency incidents. And so, but if somebody's on the street and they don't necessarily know where they are, and they are having a medical situation or an emergency, they need to call, not necessarily being a resident of that street, and they need to identify where they are. If the honorary street name sign, of course, it's going to be, as we contemplated this and proposed to our city manager, a different sign, and as in its color of its background and lettering, and maybe even different types of letters. And as you will see in your proposed ordinance in front of you, the cost of it to be borne by the applicant. So other than its ongoing maintenance, it's not really a cost, whether it's purchase, making of the sign, or installation of the sign. But again, how to make that distinction between the real street name sign and the honorary designation continues to be our staff challenge, as we discussed this in the Traffic Commission public forum with the involvement of the police department. Police department is represented in that commission. Therefore, we recommended that on the item.
Mayor and council members, so the recommendation coming from staff is that you allow us to explore other options for honoring individuals that are outside of the creation of an honorary street. Thank you.
Discussion by members of council, Mr. Clay.
Yes, thank you. But, so if I'm understanding correctly, this is not necessarily changing the street name. The example I'll use is Martin Luther King Drive in the city used to be Easton. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about in that, using that scenario, it would be Easton, still, but then Martin Luther King would be an additional sign or a, is that, am I understanding it correctly?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember, that is exactly what would occur. So the addressing would not change. There would just be another sign that is located on the pole that would reflect a different street. That probably would say honorary, whatever that thing is. So that's the intention. The concern there, again, is that if a person misspoke and said that I live on this honorary street, then our first responders would find it, but they would be delayed. And in those emergency instances, time is so critical.
Just one more question. How frequently is this request made?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember, I believe this is the first request that we are receiving. That's why it has gone before the traffic commission for consideration, because we simply don't have a policy regarding it at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Smotherson.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to simply say that when I was the council liaison for the Traffic Commission, I did the research on this, and I didn't find it particularly a problem for any cities that I looked up. This is something that's done, and it is done in St. Louis City, it's done in Chicago, and there were some other cities that I looked at. So I didn't find that to be a problem. And the other reason that I would say this, that if any of you drive down Delmar going east, and you two blocks past Kings Highway in Delmar, at the corner of Walton and Delmar, you'll see my father's name as an honorary street name, and it sits above the street name Walton. And there's no confusion, and I found there to be no confusion. And you see that street name say, and it says Reverend Melvin Smotherson. So I definitely have to support this request, and I think that I don't see that as being a problem at all.
Two things. Prior to being on the council, I was on the traffic commission for 5 years, and up until about a year ago, there had never been a request for this, and in the same meeting we had two. So it is a relatively rare thing. Secondly, I'm now the council liaison to the traffic commission. At the last meeting when this was discussed, it was presented by staff, and I think the example was given. If a car were driving down the street at that intersection, and there were to be an accident, or a child were to chase a ball into the street, and that person looked up, called 911, and was looking for the street name. If it's someone from the neighborhood they know, if it's someone from outside the area, they may not catch the right sign in a time of emergency. And so that was what was presented to the traffic commission in the last meeting about this. I do agree with Councilman Smotherson. I think in some respect, I think that I like the idea of it. I do have concerns. The one question I have for the city manager is the draft that's been presented a proposed final draft, or does that need further consideration?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember, what is presented to you tonight is just for discussion and direction. So the process would be to obtain your input, give you in direction if you want to move forward with establishing a Monrovia Street name. We would incorporate any recommendations that you had into the final document and then bring it back forward to you for discussion.
Ms. Carr.
I do agree that it can present problems even for the traveler. So if I'm unfamiliar with the name and somebody says I live on, Reverend so-and-so's street, and over time, people do adopt the name. I might not be able to find it. Maybe Waze could direct me on it. But I guess kind of following along with the recommendation, what other ways, because it seems like the neighbors on the street want to honor this particular person. So what other substantive ways can they do that besides names?
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, what we would ask you to do is to be able to go back and explore the different options. One is whether the honor of the individual is only going to be tied to the street. Could it be extended to a park? Could that mean something as like tree planting or a bench or a placard? Also, as it relates to within our right of way and at the street, can that be some sort of other monument? Those are some of the things that we would like to take a close look at and see what other cities are doing as well.
Follow up on that. So essentially, if we give you this opportunity to investigate, you could still come back and say, here is the option to rename the street as well as these other options. So you still have that option.
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, that is correct.
Mr. Clay.
Yes, very quick. Is it, given we have this kind of construct that exists in St. Louis City, I'm thinking of other streets, like St. Louis Public Schools, Dave Bradford, Pruitt Avenue. I mean, there's actually now a number that I'm thinking of honorary street designations that retain the actual street name. Is there a way to harvest data from our colleagues in the city about whether or not we've experienced the kinds of things, the concerns that the city managers articulated? I'm not in a position to know either way. I think that data would be helpful.
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, we can certainly ask for that information to see what we can obtain.
Mr. Smithson.
And just one more thing, just to be sure we understand this. It's not, we're not replacing the name. And I can absolutely tell you, in the city, Walton is still Walton. They don't refer to it as Reverend Smotherson. Walton is still Walton. And this is just an honorary designation. And we wouldn't be changing the name of the street at all.
Thank you. We do have one request to speak. I believe Ms. Bedford would like to speak to this issue. If you'll please come to the mic and give your name and address.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Mildred Bedford, representing the City of Life Christian Church, 8333 Fullerton. Our original request that we made to the Traffic Commission was July 26th of 2017. We followed those procedures, and we originally asked that the street Paramount be renamed after the pastor of the City of Life Christian Church. Staff recommended that we forego renaming the street, and we took that recommendation to request the honorary street name. Therefore, no address changes, anything like that. So I was under the impression after the Traffic Commission had made a recommendation to submit to this council review of the ordinance, is because currently there was no ordinance that existed for the honorary street name. So they amended chapter 390.020 to include honorary street name. And therefore, I thought that review was going to be done and we would be given a recommendation tonight as to whether we could proceed with the amended ordinance. And that would be to retain additional signatures because the ordinance states 75%. So we halted that process. We had already obtained about 15 signatures and we halted that because now we were talking about honorary street name. So in terms of, we looked at other cities, Kansas City, Chicago, et cetera, and even the city of St. Louis. We're not asking to rename or take a sign down, just putting that sign above it. And we're only talking about one block, 27 home owners in that one block.
Thank you. This matter has now been discussed by you also, Mr. Rose. I believe you asked for us to discuss, and we've now provided you with both pros and cons, and you'll get back to us in your turn, am I correct? Thank you very much. We can now move on to unfinished business. Before us, we have bill number 9360. Ms. Reese, would you please provide the second reading?
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a rights-of-way use agreement with Missouri American Water Company.
We have the third reading.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a rights-of-way use agreement with Missouri American Water Company.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Ms. Carr, is there a second? Second by Mr. Smothers. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Councilmember McMahon.
Aye.
Councilmember Hales.
Aye.
Councilmember Kusick.
Aye.
Councilmember Smithson.
Aye.
Councilmember Clay.
Aye.
Mayor Pro.
Aye. Thank you very much. We will now move on to I have a request to speak on 93. Is that this one's coming? I apologize. Under new business, we have resolution number 2018-11, Fogarty Grant Park application. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Carr, is there a second? Mr. Hales. Any discussion for the Fogarty Park grant application? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Can you please have introduced bill number 9361?
An ordinance amending Schedule 3 of the Traffic Code to revise traffic regulation is provided herein.
Thank you very much. We'd like to introduce bill number 9362. Mr. Smuggles. Please have the first reading. Oh, so I apologize in a second. On that one, I'm sorry. Just introduced. Okay, please. A reading of 9362.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a contract between the city of University City and the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission, providing for Westgate Avenue.
Thank you very much. We'd like to introduce bill number 9363. Ms. Carr. Can you please have the first reading?
An ordinance fixing the compensation to be paid to city officials and employees as enumerated herein from and after this passage, and repealing ordinance number 7082.
Thank you very much. There's no action to be taken. However, we have a citizen who would like to speak on this item, Ms. Jane Adams.
Jan Adams, 7150 Cambridge Avenue. I rise to urge this council to vote no on the proposed compensation schedule. First, it appears that, contrary to our charter and the city's rules and regulations, the Civil Service Board has not made a recommendation. This mandatory procedure has not been followed for several years now. I I have searched for the minutes of the Civil Service Board on the city's website, and there are none to be found after my tenure on board. I submitted a sunshine request several months ago for a specific set of minutes for a meeting that I know occurred, but I have not yet received a response to their request. I think I received a response, but I haven't received the minutes. In addition to failure to follow the mandatory procedure, there was to be a study to determine what a fair compensation schedule for municipalities our size should be. That either has not yet occurred or it has not yet been made public. Finally, the new compensation schedule calls for an approximate $800,000 increase over last year's schedule. And this is just for upper management. I have included in these written comments a breakdown of the increases. This proposed increase is presented at a time when every council member has publicly stated that we simply don't have the money at this time to provide some basic services. I urge you to either vote no or to defer a vote pending further study and citizen input. I'm not going to read each of the itemized details, but as an example, in the city manager's compensation alone, the amount for this year is estimated at $441,700, whereas last year it was $190,700. For the directors, the total is $608,000, whereas last year it was $343,000. I do want to correct one thing in my written statement. I just received today some invoices from the city attorney, which I did not have when I prepared the statement. The city attorney was paid approximately $144,000 for 2017, but in the first quarter of 2018, he billed $28,000 for just 1 month. His average monthly bill for the quarter is $18,900 per month. Therefore, he is on track to receive between $233,000 and $336,000 this year. Since then, I've received his last 3 months' invoices. The average for the 6 months is $21,258. So add $36,000 to the low range, making it $269,000 to $336,000. And I am going to submit my written comments for the record.
Thank you very much. I will now move on to council reports and business. Does any member of council have any reports that they would like to make to the commissions that they engage with? Hearing none, we'll move to other discussions and business. I beg your pardon? Oh, I'm sorry.
I did attend the last senior commission meeting, and there was discussion about the metrics associated with the ITN service. I do want to apologize to both of my colleagues on the council. The delay in getting that into a study session as requested was mine. Had some health challenges recently, but I will make sure that that is presented. But there was discussion on those metrics and what would be appropriate in terms of evaluating the partnership with ITN.
Thank you very much. Any other commission reports? Hearing none, we can move to the council rules, which was requested by both Councilmember Kusick and myself. Mr. Kusick, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sir. I was, as a liaison to one of the commissions, actually, to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting, their last meeting. It was explained to me that as a council liaison, I'm not allowed to ask questions or to speak. So I need some clarification on that. And to that degree, I'm asking that we look into this further and go over what the council rules are. I believe that you had mentioned putting together a special committee to go through that.
If I could, I think we all recognize it has been some time since the rules that the council operates under have been reviewed and looked at. And I think we owe it to all of our commission chairs to give them a clear set of guidelines because they are volunteering and putting a lot of time in it. I think probably every chair and commission member brings a different set of skills and they probably bring a different set of experiences. And I think it would be important for us, not only with our commission chairs to update our rules, but frankly for this body to update its rules because it's just been so long. It's been some time since we've even gone through them. So what I have done and what I would like to do as we proceed is I would like for us to have a committee of council that will go through the rules. I intentionally would like to have that committee have a majority of council on it so that we notice up all of our meetings, so that all of our meetings are public, and so that the meetings then will follow the rules of a study session, so the public is all invited to come and watch the processing, but it's not necessarily the procedure, but not necessarily there to speak. I think all the members of the council who would sit on this task force or commission, whatever we'd like to call it, we welcome input from our citizens. We have a number of rules out there that probably need to be looked at and need to be clarified, strengthened, or frankly, some of them even eliminated. So I'd like to hear from my colleagues if you have suggestions, and then at the end of this discussion, if it is all right with my colleagues, I would like to name the council members to the commission and then move forward. Are there any questions or comments from members of council other than Mr. Cusick? Councilmember Carr.
I would actually like to address Mr. Cusick's problem and dilemma. So when I was first elected, I similarly received direction from several chairs that I was basically to sit down and shut up. And I brought it before the council, and we reaffirmed council rule number 40, which basically said that the council liaison may contribute, but not in such a way as to determine the end result or to vote. As some of you may know on the council, in some commissions, the council liaison is actually a non-voting member of the commission, not just a liaison. And in any case, I have found that up until the situation with Mr. Cusick, I alone was the one who was being restricted. So I think that on the part of that chair, there may be a misunderstanding about what the role of the council liaison is. It is not to come and just sit there like bum on the log. It is in fact to ask questions, to answer questions, which I often find. And I am disappointed. I mean, we actually sent out to each commission chair and commission the fact that the council had reaffirmed Council Rule number 40, and that the council liaison was not simply to just sit there like a bum on the block. So I think that we need to do that again in terms of perhaps communicating to the chair and to each commission that the role of the council liaison and they're there for the benefit of both the commission and the public.
Yeah, I would hope that after the task force has met and it's then brought forward proposed changes to the rules, once council has passed those rules, then we can spend time getting information out to our commission chairs. I do want to say to my colleagues, though, to me this is a much broader issue than just the commission chair. This is, as I think we all know, we have some rules out there that were probably enacted more in retribution than how a government should operate. And I think it's probably time that we clean the books and move forward. Yes, ma'am.
So I actually have a question because Councilmember Cusick will be attending the next meeting, and I would not like to see the past behavior repeated. So is there something that we want to say or do? Or?
Well, I believe I can have a conversation within the commission chairs. However, I would like to have a broader conversation on food waste. And I believe that Mr. Cusick and I have talked prior to speaking about the message that he can deliver to the commission he is on, and I can as well. And if there's some item that the council would like to address tonight, I'm not sure that that's necessarily what we'd like to do. I believe that it would be my hope that this working group would get this done pretty quickly. Out of the number of rules we have, I think that probably 75% of them are probably not going to be touched. And I believe that we're going to move through a number of other items that need to be changed. And I also believe that if we have a majority of council working on the task force session, especially, I apologize that I'm using interchangeable terms on this, but I think it can be any number of times. I believe it's going to be very short-lived, so that we can move this through and have a discussion here. I would like actually for this to be have a time frame of getting something on the agenda here in October if we can even. So I think that period of time, unless Mr. Kusick would like me to do anything commission-wise, which I'm happy to do, I would otherwise like to forestall any further conversations about the rules until the commission gets a chance to bring the entire package back.
No, sir, I think that let's just go ahead and proceed, let the plan, and get the task force or commission together, and then I'll just deal with the chair of the commission at the next meeting, and I can take it from there. Thank you.
And any other issues? I would suggest that Councilmember Smotherson from the 3rd Ward, Councilmember Carr from the 2nd Ward, and Councilmember Hales from the 1st Ward join me on the rules task force. Again, to the citizens in the room, I hope that you will hold us accountable for making sure that our meetings are noticed up so that you have the opportunity to participate if you would like. Please note that the discussion points will be about the rules and council procedures that we operate under, and those are public documents that are accessible to you on any given day on our website. Yes, Ms. Carr.
Will this be in a study session format, or will this be
I apologize.
a regular meeting?
Yeah, no, I apologize. I thought I said that at the beginning, and let me repeat myself. I intend for this to be in the study session format. We want the public to be there, but it is not a participatory Q&A with the citizens. Citizens who would like to have input, you have all 7 members of council sitting here. You're welcome to email us, call us, talk to us on the street. I've become a very popular man of Schnucks these days, so I understand what this is like. So if you have suggestions, questions, or concerns, please make sure that you provide them to us. And I believe that the city clerk and I will be able to get notices out in the near term for our first meeting. Anything else? Hearing nothing, let's move forward now. Hearing nothing else on that. Let's move forward to citizen comments. We do have a number of requests to speak, so I would ask our citizens to come forth, give your name and address, and then as much as possible adhere to the 5-minute time limit. Next person to speak is Ms. Kathy Stratton.
Kathy Stratton, 6855 Plymouth Avenue. I've been wanting to address this issue for several months, but Ms. Erin Ginsburg pretty much beat me to the punch. But I would like to just validate what she said. For those of us who are regular participants in the audience, it's been pretty frustrating to see one citizen come up here and make inferences and ask questions and make comments that are strictly designed to cause stress and uncertainty on certain issues that are very prominent now in our city, and then take off and leave, and the rest of us are allowed to stay, and we hear a lot of the explanations. Our mayor, our city manager, and our council member have answered and addressed a lot of that in meetings time and time again. So I was just going to ask that all participants show courtesy to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next request to speak comes from Ms. Jan Adams.
Jan Adams, 7150 Cambridge Avenue. I rise tonight to incorporate my comments from the last TIF public hearing into the minutes of this record. On June 22nd, 2018, my comments were as follows. Quote, "I rise tonight to challenge a statement made by Ms. Rosalind Williams at the beginning of tonight's meeting. I recorded her statement that the, quote, development plan has all of the characteristics of a community benefits agreement. No, it does not, because it does not empower the residents to enforce the promises of the developer or the politicians. A separate CBA is essential to the success of any development. Ms. Williams said that the next step is that the city designs a development agreement. If you don't allow the community activists time to negotiate a CBA in advance, you deny them any leverage. And I know that you know that. I was speaking to the TIF Commission. So I reiterate my request that if you do recommend approval, please make that approval contingent on a reasonable CBA. That was the end of my statement. Tonight I state, I attended the CBA meeting of July 10. The community engagement specialist, Glenn Burleigh, for the St. Louis Equal Housing Council, a nonprofit organization with a mission to educate the public about CBAs, stated that the city cannot enforce wage agreements pursuant to Missouri law. That is why we need a CBA for that issue. Mr. Burleigh, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly, explained to our citizens that a CBA is an equitable development tool that protects against displacement and disenfranchisement of long-term, low-income, and minority residents in communities. The recommended remedy in a CBA is a clawback of funds if the workforce promises are not kept. Furthermore, that it is, quote, required, end quote, that a CBA is executed in order to allow the developer to work with banks to help homeowners obtain the loans they need. I do not understand why you all persist in denying your constituents the legal right to enforce the many promises that are being made by the developer, by you, and by your surrogates speaking in your name. The August 8 meeting conducted by the city and attended by a quorum of council members was inexplicably not recorded by the city. However, there is a video that was created by the news media. That video, the only record of the recent citizen input sought by council, is not posted on the city's Facebook page and is not yet a part of the city's public records. I posted a comment on the city's Facebook page asking that the video be posted, and it has not yet appeared. The many surrogate speakers supporting this development are stating as facts data that is merely projections and estimates. I was pleased to hear the city manager make it clear that there are many unknowns and that the information presented consists of, quote, goals and hopes and plans. But you are asking the residents of the Third Ward and the businesses in the Third Ward to sacrifice their homes and businesses and put their trust in you, and that it will be good for all residents at the end of the day. But you know, and I know, that we have elections every 2 years, and you cannot possibly, in good faith, make promises to folks that you know you individually cannot keep. Consider this. Would each of you be willing to sign personal guarantees, putting up your homes and your businesses as collateral? If not, then your fiduciary duty to the residents of this city is to cooperate with the citizen activists, including our clergy, to support and create a CBA. And adding to my written comments, I note that the meetings that were organized by the community activists have been videotaped. The citizens participated and there was lots of input at several meetings, and that input has been reduced to writing and presented to council. Now ask yourselves why the citizens came forward at the CBA meetings, monitored and conducted by the citizen activists, but they didn't come forward in the August 8th meeting. And I ask that my written comments be submitted to the record.
The next speaker will be Ms. Patricia McQueen.
Well, my name is Patricia McQueen. I live at 1132 George Street. Dear Mayor, members of the City Council, and City Manager, after attending the continuing TIF Commission public meetings and a third ward neighborhood meeting, I'm concerned that the TIF Commission members have not been given the time to deliberate among themselves because they are taking the time to listen to University City residents and to some non-University City speakers. I would like to suggest at the next continued TIF Commission public meeting, or at least you suggested to the chair about formatting, that prior University City residents who have spoken more than once and non-University City residents that like at Sunset Hills, Rock Hill, Richmond Heights residents, etc., Horseshoe students, would not be given the opportunity to speak. Or you can give them the options to say at the end of the public meeting for free speech transparency purposes, only say yay for the TIF or no for the TIF. No discussion or speeches. Going off script, we've heard a lot of speeches that have taken a long time. I suggested above format because it has been 2 months of hearing the various pro and con arguments about the TIF. And I think the residents in the area affected, as in RP1, need to hear from the TIF commissioners themselves. They need to know how they're thinking. The same people and their supporters, oh, that's not the word, surrogates, are repeating their arguments, are supplementing new tactics that support their arguments, be they third ward residents, University City residents at large, or out of town, or I would say, or out of University City interested parties. Because there will not be another city council meeting until after the next August 23rd TIF Commission public meeting, I feel I must make my plea now, not just for me, but for the third ward residents in the proposed project RP1 area. On another note, very brief, please have more beefed up security at the next third ward neighborhood meeting and at the next TIF Commission public meeting. Angry emotions could escalate, and they already have, and a police presence could de-escalate some individuals' angry behavior that I've witnessed at prior public meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Elsie Blicker.
Thank you for your patience. I'm Elsie Blicker, 6712 Betzel. And I'd like to talk to you about our Heman Park swimming pool, which is now 85 years old. And apparently, due to some misunderstanding or misthinking on lifeguards, at the November meeting of the Park Commission, they assumed there would be no lifeguards available at this time of the year. So our beautiful swimming pool is now closed and does not open until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This year, lifeguarding has been outsourced. This pool is 85 years old. And for 83 years of that history, we have had in-house training of lifeguards, Red Cross, all done by our staff. We have paid staff in this department who apparently are not qualified lifeguards even. We have 2 members of the staff who should be trained and in turn would certify lifeguards, just as they've done for 83 years previously. I understand the makeup of the city council. You cannot give a direction to an employee, but you can give directions to the city manager. My suggestion is that you take the bull by the horns and acknowledge that we have inadequate administration of this swimming pool. Tell them to see that they become certified to train lifeguards. There are programs available at Red Cross. Both people in charge of the swimming pool should be qualified to train lifeguards. This is a multi-million-dollar complex, and this is the hottest time of the year in St. Louis. It should be open full-time, just as it was for 83 years previously. In a related matter, a person was appointed, excuse me, a person was appointed to the Park Commission, a very qualified person. But this individual is related by marriage to the person in charge of the swimming pool. This is obviously a conflict of interest. This individual, now this is something the city council can do, should request that he resign. He's very qualified to serve on any board or commission who is not in conflict with the park department. If he doesn't resign, the city manager should call the employee in and say, bye-bye. One or the other. But this sounds like City of St. Louis politics. Thank you.
Next speaker, Steve, is you anyway, so how's that? Perfect time.
Thank you very much. Steve Blicker, 7750 Blackberry. First of all, a couple things. First and foremost, I want to apologize for my tone and my demeanor last meeting back in July. I was critiqued on one of the social sites that I came across as rude. I would agree with that assessment. That escalated over the years. So I tried being nice. I tried sarcasm. I tried power and numbers with my neighbors. I even tried show and tell, where I brought pieces of my street up here. Nothing seemed to work. So I guess I escalated to anger, and I apologize. I have since watched Unpatch. Now that it's available online, I'll be able to watch it through the city. How that meeting turned out, because I had to leave. I appreciate your questions that you presented to Mr. Teague, I believe his name was, about the process coming up on the approval of the paving award. Thank you for approving the street and including it on the next paving schedule. Your question on the NILVA chip process, it has the Good Housekeeping seal of approval through many states, including our Missouri Department of Transportation. They're using multiple highways in our area. I have actually witnessed it and driven on it. It's great. I appreciate your question that there will be an inspector on this job site. There will be many inspectors on this job site. I'm going to have a meet and greet in the street with my neighbors. We're going to have a watch party. And I'd also like to submit a few things that need to be addressed or looked at. This project, I believe the city manager confirmed with Mr. Tate that this was the 800 block of work. That also has to include the 750 block, where The paving stopped 3 years ago. This would encompass or include the intersection of Balsam Avenue that is in a deteriorated state and has a significant dip or depression at the bottom of the hill. So that needs to be addressed. All the keyways that the water shutoffs use for zone valves for Missouri American Water, they do not need to be paved over. And I know you're going to look at me and say, Mr. Glicker, those are all givens. They are not. I've been through this, and this has been a disgrace. So that needs to be addressed. Missouri American Water needs to be on the job site also to point those out. The driveway aprons, they need to meet the street seamlessly. Smooth transition. Several uneven levels with two surfaces between the street and driveways have happened. Severe differentials. No gaps, no dips, no collection of the material like we have with the rock. This could continue to be a problem as of this day. The ADA ramps on the corners needs to be a smooth transition. You would not believe what has happened here in the past. Disgraceful. Smooth transition from the curb to the sewer, or on the curb line into the sewer. We've had collections where it's diverted water, standing water that is frozen. We've had accidents where we've had an ice rink. And before this whole process starts, all the utility agencies, MSD, Spire, Clean Gas, whatever you want to call them, and Missouri American Water, to make sure that they don't have a project coming up 10 minutes after you finish the street. I would love to make sure that there's a clear way. I know that there's going to be water main breaks or a sewer collapse, that happens. But I can see them coming and changing the whole sewer line right after you finish. That's it on that. Thank you to our city manager on another subject. I contacted him regarding political yard signs that showed up all over our city on utility easements, tree lawns. His reaction and immediate response to that with our police department was incredible. Thank you very much. We have some political people that have really taken a dump on our city.
Next speaker will be Travis Goody. I apologize, but I mispronounced your last name.
Travis Goody with 5889 Clemens. I was actually just here. This is my first time coming to a council meeting. Right, what everyone has to say, everything, and I'm actually trying to do a business and an address that you guys are proposing to tear down. So we're trying to find out if there has been a little delay on it, because I guess in 2014 you guys had a mission to where you actually had people come out and want us to submit a proposal to beautify the area. Like I said, the old tea house is on Midland and Harlem. Initial proposal to tear it down. And I talked to Austin today, and she said I should come to the meeting and Austin's getting by so we can delay the construction of the building.
You are welcome to continue speaking. You have 5 minutes to speak. If you want to respond to citizen comments.
Right, I don't know what to say, who to talk to about it, so I'm just trying to find out more information about it and who to talk to.
Right.
She just said I should come to the meeting because everything will turn it down as of today. So this is probably one of the last times I also talked to Colleen as well. So I was trying to find out just a little bit of information. I don't know who to talk to. I'm just here to talk on behalf of my business partners, people that we're trying to get together on something. That's all. So
I am sure that our Public Works Director, Ms. Christina Appleson, would be happy to provide you with his contact information. He has overseen that project.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next person to speak is Ida Johnson.
Ida Johnson, 7591 Amherst. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Mrs. Evelyn Johnson, who has lived there since 1968. On the side of the house, there is a sewer that runs directly on the side towards the rear of the house. That sewer, over the past 40 plus years, has eroded away the ground on the side of the home, causing a shift in her foundation. The sewer has eroded so much throughout the years that it is now in her backyard. The fence has fallen down. It has also taken a storage building that she had up there, the foundation, the current concrete foundation has also washed away. There were some other items that were in the yard and it's all gone. My father, before he passed away, had tried to get UCity to come and fix it. Prior to our living there, the sewer ran under north and south. It was open on the east and the west side of it. I believe it was in the 80s that it was closed on the west side. The east side was left open. Because of its being closed, now when the water runs, you have to run 3 or 4 days worth of rain coming. Now, when the water comes out on the east side, it rushes with such a force. The water overflows the banks. The sewage has backed up into my mother's basement on multiple occasions. It's caused substantial damage to her home. FEMA has been in several times for to help with the cleanup. It has affected her physical health. And I am asking that you consider putting it in the budget and proceed with closing out the east side of the sewer so that it no longer will be presented as a health hazard. Right now, there are snakes, there are rats. We're beyond mice. We now have big sewer rats that are there in the creek. I've seen them in the yard. I've seen the snakes up there. I've seen other wildlife such as a fox. And it's only getting worse. As I said before, raw sewage has been in her basement as backed up. It's also been in the yard where she's had to get someone to come and clean it. My mother's in her 80s and she is incapable of doing the cleanup herself. It has cost her money to get it done and money that she really does not have to invest into getting someone to come in there continuously to clean it up. It is a health hazard because not only does she have to deal with the raw sewage and the stench that is around there coming off of the sewer, there are mosquitoes, there are all kinds of different bugs that are up on the doors, on the windows. She cannot open the windows to enjoy the air when it's not burning hot. And so to conclude, I'm asking that you consider putting it in the budget to close the east side of the sewer. That's it. Thank you.
The final citizen comments, Aaron Ginsberg. You're done?
The meeting's long enough.
Amen. Thank you very much. That concludes our citizen participation for the evening. Members of council, do you have comments you would like to make prior to the closed session? Ms. Carr.
I would actually like to first ask the city manager and other members of the council. We've been told that we received something on a CBA. I have not. Has anybody received anything?
I'm not sure how to respond to that, because I'm not sure what they are suggesting that we have received.
Ms. Adams just said that we had been given some material on a CBA. I have not received it. I didn't know if anybody else had.
I have not received it.
All right. I'm sorry. So I would like to announce that we are having a meeting tomorrow with the businesses on Olive, those that would be in RPA 3. It will be early in the morning, 7:30. It will be a work session, kind of a breakout for them to go through some ideas of how they would benefit, how they would see benefit from the $5 million set aside from the TIF, if in fact we get it. And that was one of the meetings that the city manager had asked for some time for, so that we could make outreach to the various stakeholders and see what was happening. There'll be another meeting on Friday, then at 17th at 6, is that correct? 6 o'clock at Heman Park Community Center. And that will also be a workshop kind of breakout meeting, which we think will be more productive in terms of identifying what kinds of things people would like, how they might like to see the money invested in Ward 3. And then, of course, to remind you that the following week on Wednesday, there will be the continuation of the TIF Commission public hearing. A public hearing is for citizen comment. So if and when that closes, then the TIF Commission will begin the discussion and make comments and recommendations. But we wanted that opportunity in particular so that we could make outreach to the stakeholders. It's really unprecedented that a TIF Commission public hearing has gone on for 3 months. I'm really rather proud of the city for having taken that kind of an approach to keep it open. So I hope that if you have interest in those, you will feel free to attend and participate. But in terms of the Ward 3 meeting, I might suggest that it is the recipient, or those people, the stakeholders, who would actually be most desired in terms of their input for this. I don't know that there's an exclusion, but I would really like to hear, we would all really like to hear from residents of Ward 3 who will be the recipients in RPA 2 of the proposed $10 million. Thank you.
Any other comments from members of council? Mr. Kuzic.
Councilmember Carr, I believe I heard you say that the TIF Commission meeting is Wednesday the 23rd. I believe that's Thursday. Yes, Mayor, I have several comments I would like to make. Ms. Johnson, are you still here? You talked about the problems we're having. I would like to know if Mr. Rose, if we can follow up with her problems. It sounds like it might be an MSD problem, but can we make a note that we can look into this? And especially when you talk about rats in the yard, there is vector control for St. Louis County, and if we can look in that. And you mentioned the problem with mosquitoes, and I don't know how many residents have realized, but City Manager Rose has asked St. Louis County to start spraying University City, and I believe we were sprayed just a couple of days ago or a week ago, and there was a schedule for that so that we can start addressing the problems with mosquitoes. And Mr. Glicker, I'm glad to hear that your street is being repaired. I wish that we had in the budget that we could go through University City and repair all the streets. But the important thing that I'd like to mention to you is that you said that 10 minutes after we make the repairs to make sure MSD or Spire or Ameren or the water company doesn't come along and tear it up. I think Mr. Rose is already aware of that issue, that our repair schedule is consulting with those utilities to make sure that doesn't happen, because it is pretty bad when we go and repair a street and they come and they tear it all up. Also, about the farmers market, I guess I need a point of order that the farmers market presentation, they're asking that some action by the council or by the city manager's office. Is there something that we can do to follow up with that?
We can follow up.
We can follow up with that, okay. And then finally, I'd like to make a comment about what happened to me when I was at one of the commission meetings when I was told that I wasn't allowed to speak. I am the liaison to 3 boards and commissions, and the other 2 that I the council liaison to, I am able to speak and participate in those meetings, and they welcome what I have to say, and I recognize and realize that I'm not a voting member of those commissions. But more importantly, I recognize the importance of all of our boards and commissions, and I said it before, that it is the citizens that help make the city as good as it is and great, and we value the input of those residents on those boards and commissions. especially that they don't want council members to come in and push their agenda on them, but that they can make recommendations to this council. But at the same time, we have the democratic process that we need to follow with. And I think that that goes for the boards and commissions as well, that all residents should have equal access to the democratic process. And I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Mr. Hales?
Thank you, Mayor Gross. A couple of things I'd like to address. I think this is our first meeting following our strategic planning session, which seems like a long time ago now. We met, I believe it was July 14th, for 6 hours, all of us, and I want to thank the city manager and Ms. Reese and all of the department directors and staff that attended, because for half of that day, they all spent it with us, and the council had a conversation, and the city manager had a conversation, and I think that was a long time coming, 6 years. It was a great opportunity for us to have an open conversation. The meeting was public, there were a few citizens that did attend at the library, but it was a great opportunity, I thought, for the council as well as staff to interact with one another, which we don't often directly do, but for staff to get a feel for what our priorities are collectively and individually. Out of that, one of the things that was discussed was the video live streaming of these meetings, which I hope is going very smoothly tonight. I know a lot of effort went into it, so I'm again very pleased with that. About two or three weekends ago, I did about a 6-hour ride along with our police department, with Officer Valley, who was very gracious to entertain me for that amount of time. It was a great experience. There is an upcoming Citizens Police Academy, which begins September 11th and runs through October 16th. I did that back in 2013. It is a great opportunity to meet our officers, learn quite a bit about what they do, what their job entails. But it was really a wonderful experience to have that time and ride around. They spend a lot of hours in the car, and I can tell you those seats are not terribly comfortable, but they really do a terrific job. And so I would encourage you to search for University City Citizens Police Academy, Google it, it should pop up. I'm not sure when the applications are due, but I believe you want to talk with Captain Lemons on that. The final thing I want to say, we've seen and heard a lot of things over the years in these chambers, and there have been some very good times and there have been some less good times. Things said that are very nice and some things said that are not very nice. But when I look out and I see many people that are still here, citizens staying just after 8 o'clock, it saddens me. And I hope that people will reflect to suggest that anyone in this room is a surrogate of someone else is really disparaging. It's really, we've talked a lot about civility in these chambers, it's really unfortunate. This community, as I think all of us know, is full of incredibly bright, intelligent, passionate people. And all of you are sitting in this room are precisely that. You're engaged and you're invested in this community. I look out and I don't see a single surrogate. And I hope that we think about that. So thank you.
Thank you. A couple of comments before we move forward into executive session. This past week with the PTA in town, I got to spend a great deal more time in the loop, both with my kids and with individuals, and it was great to see the loop bustling all night long. All the restaurants were pretty busy, people moving through peacefully. a respectful police presence, not too strong, not too small. So to me, that was one of those nice, successful weeks for us. One of our speakers tonight talked about council members giving personal guarantees. I think, you know, the days of that, really, I think the hyperbole probably needs to come to an end, particularly the small group of people who always enjoyed more than anything suing us all personally. I mean, I think at some point in time, we've really got to move this city forward, and I think that we are. That also brings up the point that I really do chagrin when someone compares the current administration to the city of St. Louis. I think we know from whence we came, and I think we know who got us there, and we are moving forward. I think we're moving forward as a community, and like Mr. Hale said, we are a community that's full of talented, caring people, not just folks that come out and talk yay or nay, but people who go about their business every day. Those are the people who want to see what is happening in this city happen. They want us to move it forward, and they want us to do it in a way that is respectful to each other, that is not punitive, and is not personal. So to the citizens in this room, I hope that you are feeling that when you walk in these chambers, you are treated equally. There are not people that any longer get special treatment, that when they make one single posting, things happen. Now, hopefully, all of you feel the same way, that when you come in these chambers, they are your chambers, and we want you here, we welcome you here, we welcome your input, whether you agree or you disagree with us. I would ask, as always, that the personal attacks by some members probably ought to stop. We're all pretty big here, and frankly, I've been on this thing 10 years. So I think I've got that part pretty well down pat. And finally, what I'd like to say is this. Every person sitting up here is accountable to you. We're accountable, in my case, in a little less than 4 years. In Mr. Hale's case, coming up pretty soon. So we are accountable, and we are responsible to you. And that is why we are trying to move this city forward and accomplish what we can. With that, I would ask that there be a motion that we go into closed session according to RSMO 610.021, legal actions, causes of action, or litigation involving a public governmental body and any confidential or privileged communication between a governmental body or its representatives and its attorneys. Is there such a motion? Motion by Mr. McMahon. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hale. We have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember McMahon.
Aye.
Councilmember Hales.
Aye.
Councilmember Kusick.
Aye.
Councilmember